The halls of the Galactic Council citadel stretched for miles in every direction. Great pillars of black stone rose toward ceilings so high they disappeared into artificial clouds. Thousands of alien species walked these halls every day, conducting the business of a galaxy that had known civilization for 100,000 years. Among them walked a small group of humans, Ambassador. Unipark moved through the crowd with quiet grace. She was a woman in her middle years, with black hair pulled back simply and a face that seemed made for smiling. And she did smile, constantly, at every alien that passed. Some ignored her. Others looked at her with open disgust. A few made rude gestures in their own cultural traditions. Yuna smiled at all of them. Behind her walked for others. Taiho Quan, her head of security, was a tall man with watchful eyes that never stopped moving. Hannah Lim, her deputy, was younger and walked with the confidence of someone who had won many arguments. Doyen Choi stayed close, his medical bag never far from his hand, and Narisong brought up the rear, her fingers occasionally touching the communication device hidden beneath her sleeve. "They really do not like us," Hannah said quietly. "They fear what they do not understand," Yuna replied, her smile never changing. "And they do not understand us at all." A massive reptilian creature blocked their path. It stood 3 meters tall, covered in green scales, with 4 arms and a mouthful of teeth designed for tearing flesh. It was a Velker, one of the elder races that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. "Move aside, primitive," it growled. Yuna stepped aside gracefully, bowing her head slightly. "Of course. Please, go ahead." The Velker snorted and pushed past them. Its companions laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. Taiho's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. None of them did. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 3 years ago. In that time, they had learned many things. The galaxy was old. The elder races were powerful. And humans were considered barely more than clever animals who had somehow stumbled into space travel. The council chamber was a vast dome at the heart of the citadel. Today, it was filled with representatives from over 200 species. At the center, on a raised platform, sat High Arbiter Veldis. Veldis was ancient, even by Velker standards. His scales had faded to a dull gray. His eyes held the cold intelligence of a creature that had survived through cruelty and cunning. He looked down at the assembled council with absolute authority. "We come now to the matter of human territories," Veldis announced. Yuna took her seat in the human section, a small area near the back of the chamber. She folded her hands in her lap and continued smiling. "It has become clear," Veldis continued, "that the humans are incapable of proper stewardship of their colony worlds. They lack the wisdom, the technology, and the culture necessary to manage such resources. I propose that their territories be redistributed among the elder races for proper development." A murmur went through the chamber. Some species nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. A few turned to look at the human delegation. Counselor Themis, insectoid creature with compound eyes and delicate wings, raised one of his 4 arms. "High Arbiter, this proposal troubles me. The humans have given us no cause for such action." "Their existence is cause enough," Veldis replied. "They are primitives. They do not belong among the stars. They defeated the Void Swarm," Themis pointed out. The chamber went silent. The Void Swarm had been a nightmare that consumed 3 elder civilizations before vanishing 18 months ago. No one spoke of them. Veldis waved a dismissive hand. "Luck, nothing more. Now, does the human representative wish to speak?" All eyes turned to Yuna. She rose slowly, her smile warm and gentle. "Thank you, High Arbiter, for the opportunity to address this distinguished body." Her voice was soft, but it carried clearly through the chamber. "I must respectfully decline your proposal. Earth will not surrender any territory." Veldis leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You decline? You are in no position to decline anything, human." "Perhaps not," Yuna agreed pleasantly. "But I decline nonetheless. Our worlds are our homes. Our people have built lives there. We will not abandon them. You speak as if you have a choice." Yuna's smile did not waver. We always have a choice. High Arbiter. That is something humans believe very deeply. Veldis stood, his massive form towering over the chamber. Then you are fools. This council has decided. Your territories will be redistributed. Your fleet will be absorbed. Your species will accept its proper place in the hierarchy of civilization. And if we refuse, then you will be made to accept. Yuna bowed her head slightly. Thank you for making the situation clear. She returned to her seat, still smiling. The session ended shortly after. As the human delegation left the chamber, Hannah moved close to Yuna. They're going to come for us, she whispered. Yes, Yuna agreed. What do we do? We wait. We watch. And we trust in our people. In his private chambers, High Arbiter Veldis met with Commander Draxus. The military chief of the Hegemony fleet, Draxus was younger than Veldis, eager for glory, and hungry for the chance to prove himself. The humans have refused, Veldis said. I want them arrested. Tonight, on what charges? Espionage, sedition, whatever you wish. It does not matter. Once we have their ambassador, Earth will have no choice but to surrender. Draxus smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. It will be my pleasure, High Arbiter. Outside the door, Counselor Themis hesitated. He had come to warn Veldis against this course of action, but the decision had already been made. Instead, he pulled out a data tablet and began reviewing a classified file he had obtained years ago. The file was about Yuna Park. Before she became a diplomat, she had been something else entirely. The intelligence services called her the Smiling Death. In 12 years of military service, she had conducted over 200 operations. The details were classified at the highest level, but the results were clear. Every enemy she had faced was dead. Themis closed the file and hurried away. He needed to find somewhere safe. Very soon, this station was going to become extremely dangerous. That night, soldiers surrounded the human delegation's quarters. 50 armed Velker warriors, equipped with the finest weapons the hegemony could provide. They expected resistance. They expected fear. Inside, Yuna Park sat at a small table, pouring herself a cup of tea. The steam rose gently in the artificial light. Through the window, she could see the soldiers taking their positions. Taiho appeared at her side. They're here, I know. Orders. Yuna took a sip of her tea. It was a blend from Earth, one she had brought with her. The taste reminded her of home, of quiet mornings and peaceful gardens. No resistance, she said. Let them take us. Taiho nodded. He had served with Yuna long enough to trust her completely, even when her orders seemed strange. And after, Yuna set down her cup and turned to face the door. The soldiers were beginning their breach. In moments, they would pour into the room with weapons raised and voices shouting. She smiled. After she said softly, they will learn why that was a mistake. The door exploded inward, and the soldiers rushed in. They found 5 humans standing calmly, hands raised, offering no resistance at all. It was the most unsettling thing they had ever seen. The detention block was cold, and white and empty. It had been designed to hold thousands of prisoners from hundreds of species. The cells could adjust their atmosphere gravity and temperature to keep any creature alive and miserable. For the humans, the cells were simply cold. Yuna Park sat alone in a small room with no windows. The walls were smooth metal. The floor was hard. A single light burned overhead, never dimming, never changing. There was no bed, no chair, nothing but the empty space and the silence. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her hands resting on her knees, her eyes closed. Her smile remained in another part of the detention block. The rest of her team was held in a larger cell. Taiho stood near the door, his eyes fixed on the guards outside. Hannah paced back and forth, her mind working through the political situation. Doyen sat quietly, mentally cataloging their injuries and the medical supplies he no longer had. Nari leaned against the wall, her fingers tapping a slow rhythm on her thigh. How long do you think they'll keep us here? Hannah asked. As long as it takes to break us, Taiho replied. They want confessions. Evidence to justify their actions? We've done nothing wrong. It doesn't matter to them. A guard passed by the cell, a massive four-armed creature with gray skin and small, cruel eyes. This was Warden Collis, the commander of the detention block. He stopped to look at the humans, studying them like insects trapped in a jar. "Comfortable?" he asked, his voice like grinding stones. None of them answered. Collis laughed. "You will talk eventually. Everyone talks. Your ambassador is alone right now, thinking about how small and weak she is. Soon she will beg to tell us everything." He walked away, still laughing. Taiho watched him go. "Nari," he said quietly, without moving his lips. Nari stopped tapping. Signals sent. 20 hours ago. Confirmation received. Hannah looked at her sharply. "How they took everything." Nari allowed herself a small smile. "Not everything is visible, Deputy. Some things are under the skin." Every member of the diplomatic team had a subdermal implant, a tiny device buried beneath the flesh that could send emergency signals across vast distances. It was technology that the Galactic Council did not know humans possessed. The message had been simple. Protocol Requiem. Ambassador compromised. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, a fleet was moving. In her cell, Yuna opened her eyes as the door slid open. Warden Collis entered, ducking his massive head to fit through the frame. Behind him came two guards with weapons drawn. "Ambassador Park," he said, making her title sound like an insult. "The High Arbiter wants your confession." "Confession to what?" Yuna asked pleasantly. "Espionage. Your people have been spying on the Council. We have diplomats on this station. Diplomacy requires observation and understanding. That is not espionage." Collis moved closer, looming over her small form. "You will confess. One way or another." Yuna looked up at him, her smile unchanged. "May I ask you something, Warden?" He blinked, surprised by the question. "What, do you have family? Children?" The question caught him off guard. For a moment, his cruel expression flickered with something else. Confusion, perhaps. Or suspicion. "Why do you ask?" "I'm curious. I find that understanding others helps me understand situations better. You seem like someone who takes pride in his work. Someone with responsibilities. A family would give you motivation to do well." Collis stared at her. In all his years as a warden, no prisoner had ever asked him about his family. They begged. They threatened. They cried. They never made conversation. "I have 3 offspring," he said slowly. "Why does this matter?" "It doesn't, really. I just like to know who I'm speaking with." Yuna's smile warmed slightly. "This is a beautiful station, by the way. The architecture is impressive. How old is it? 12,000 years? Remarkable. Humans have only had cities for about 10,000 years. We're very young compared to your civilization." Collis shook his head, trying to regain control of the situation. "Enough. You will confess to espionage, or you will face the consequences." "What consequences would those be?" "Pain, isolation, eventually execution." Yuna nodded slowly, as if considering a business proposal. "I see. And if I confess falsely, my people will be destroyed anyway. So my choices are to die with truth or die with lies." She paused. "I prefer truth." Collis leaned down until his face was close to hers. His breath was hot and smelled of something metallic. "You should be afraid, human. You should be begging for mercy, should I?" "Yes." Yuna met his eyes without flinching. Her smile did not waver, but something in her gaze shifted. For just a moment, Collis felt something strange, something he had not felt in many years. He felt like prey. "Let me tell you something about humans, Warden," Yuna said softly. "We smile when we are happy. We smile when we are sad. We smile when we greet friends and when we face enemies. Do you know why?" Collis said nothing. A smile means nothing and everything. It can be warmth or warning, welcome or threat. When a human smiles at you, you never truly know what lies beneath. She paused. "I am smiling at you now, Warden. What do you think it means?" Collis straightened abruptly. He turned and walked out of the cell without another word. The door slid shut behind him. In the corridor, one of his guards looked at him with concern. "Warden, are you well?" "Fine," Collis growled. "She's just trying to manipulate me." Primitive psychological tricks. But as he walked away, he could not shake the feeling that he had just made a terrible mistake. Back in the group cell, Taiho was teaching the others a game using small stones he had found in a corner. To the guards watching through cameras, it looked like bored prisoners passing time. In reality, each movement of the stones was a message. Patrol change at 6 hours. 4 guards on rotation. Weapons are plasma-based, short range. Door mechanism is electronic, vulnerable to override. Hannah picked up a stone and placed it carefully. Structure weak at junction 7. Maintenance access to levels down. Doyan added his own stone. Medical bay 3 corridors east. Supplies available. Nari completed the pattern. Fleet arrival, estimated 40 hours. They played the game for another hour, mapping the entire detention block through the movement of small stones. The guards watched and saw nothing but humans playing with rocks. 20 hours later, Kolos returned to Yuna's cell. This time, he came alone. "The High Arbiter is losing patience," he said. "Tomorrow, he will address the Council and present evidence of human espionage. You will be used as proof. Dead or alive, it does not matter to him, understand?" Yuna said. "Do you? Do you understand that your entire species is about to be destroyed because of your stubbornness?" Yuna rose to her feet slowly. She was small compared to Kolos, barely reaching his chest. But she stood straight, with a dignity that made her seem larger. "Do you know why humans smile, Warden? Even when we are threatened. Even when we face death." Kolos felt that strange feeling again. "No, because we've already decided what comes next." Kolos stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and left, more disturbed than before. 40 hours after the humans were captured, a fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Council territory. 200 warships, led by the dreadnought Eternal Soul. They did not ask for permission. They did not request negotiations. They simply announced their presence and began moving toward the Citadel in her cell. Yuna heard the distant sound of alarms beginning to wail. Her smile widened. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson about humanity, and the lesson would be unforgettable. The Council chamber had never known a panic like this. High Arbiter Veldis stood at his podium, trying to project calm authority, but his scales had paled to a sickly gray. Around him, counselors from 200 species shouted questions, demanded answers, and generally behaved like creatures who had suddenly realized they were standing on the edge of a cliff. "Order," Veldis roared. "I will have order." The chamber quieted, but the fear remained. Every being present had seen the reports. 200 human warships had appeared from nowhere and were now moving through Council space at speeds that should have been impossible. "The human fleet is no threat," Veldis declared. "Our hegemony fleet outnumbers them 3-1. Commander Draxus is already moving to intercept." Counselor Themis rose from his seat. His compound eyes reflected the emergency lights that flashed throughout the chamber. "High Arbiter, I must speak." "What is it, Themis?" "I have reviewed classified intelligence reports about humanity. I believe we have made a severe miscalculation." Veldis made a dismissive gesture. "The humans are primitives. They stumbled into space barely a century ago. They cannot match civilizations that have existed for millennia. They defeated the Void Swarm." The chamber went silent again. The Void Swarm had been the nightmare of the galaxy, a swarm intelligence that consumed everything in its path. 3 elder civilizations had fallen before them. Then suddenly, the swarm had vanished. "That was luck," Veldis said, but his voice lacked conviction. It was not luck. Themis activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the chamber. Images of burning worlds and shattered fleets. This is what the humans did to the Void Swarm. They did not defeat them, High Arbiter. They hunted them. Across 40 star systems, for 18 months, they did not stop until every last swarm creature was dead. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many counselors had not known this. The information had been classified at the highest levels because no one wanted to admit that a young species had done what the elder races could not. They committed genocide, someone said. They committed survival, Themis corrected. And they did it with only a fraction of the fleet that now approaches us. He paused to let that sink in. I have also obtained the military record of Ambassador Unipark. Before she became a diplomat, she served in human special operations. Her code name was the Smiling Death. She personally conducted over 200 combat operations. Every enemy she faced was eliminated. Veldis slammed his fist on the podium. Enough. I will not have this chamber frightened by stories about one human female. She is in our custody. She is helpless, and her fleet will be destroyed. At that moment, a communications officer rushed into the chamber. His face was pale with terror. High Arbiter, the hegemony fleet has engaged the humans. And? The officer's voice trembled. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Every hegemony vessel has been destroyed. The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselors screamed, fled, or simply stood frozen in shock. Veldis gripped the podium with all four hands, his mind struggling to process what he had just heard. That's impossible, he whispered. 600 ships against 200. How? Themis answered, his voice cutting through the noise. Because we never understood what humans are. High Arbiter. We saw small bodies and soft skin and assumed they were weak. We heard their polite words and gentle voices and assumed they were harmless. We were wrong. In the detention block, Warden Collis watched the battle reports on his personal screen. His hands were shaking. The video showed human warships moving through the hegemony fleet like predators through prey. Their weapons were precise, their tactics flawless. They did not waste a single shot. The hegemony fleet had not even damaged one human vessel. His communicator buzzed. It was the High Arbiter. Collis. Execute the human prisoners. Immediately, Collis hesitated. High Arbiter, if we kill them, the humans will do it. Their fleet is coming. If we cannot defeat them in space, we will deny them their prize. The communication ended. Collis stood still for a long moment, staring at the screen. Then he began walking toward the cells. In the group cell, Nari suddenly stood straight. They're coming. Tai-Ho was already on his feet. How many? One, from the sound of footsteps. The warden coming to execute us. Probably. Tai-Ho looked at the others. Hannah had moved to the corner of the cell, positioning herself out of direct sight from the door. Do-Yeon had picked up the stones they had used for their game. They were not heavy, but they were hard. Nari had positioned herself near the door controls. Remember, Taito said quietly, we are diplomats. We are here in peace. They all smiled. Collis appeared outside the cell. He was alone, which was unusual. His weapon was drawn. His hands were still shaking. The High Arbiter has ordered your execution, he said through the barrier. Has he? Tai-Ho remained calm. On what authority? We have committed no crime. You're human? That is crime enough. Collis reached for the control to open the cell. I will make this quick. More mercy than your kind deserves. The cell door slid open. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. Do-Yeon threw the stones with perfect accuracy, striking Collis in his small, cruel eyes. Nari dropped to the floor, sweeping Colos's legs out from under him. Tai-Ho moved forward, grabbing the warden's weapon arm and twisting it at an angle that no joint should bend. Hannah emerged from the corner and delivered. A precise strike to the nerve cluster at the base of Colos's skull. The massive warden collapsed. He was unconscious before he hit the floor. Tai-Ho took the weapon and checked the corridor. Empty.
Hey.
We need to reach the ambassador. I know where she is, Nari said. Solitary block, level 4. They moved like shadows, for humans who had spent years pretending to be harmless diplomats. Their movements were silent and efficient. The few guards they encountered were neutralized before they could raise an alarm. On level 4, they found Yuna's cell. Hannah worked the door controls while the others kept watch. The door slid open. Unipark sat on the floor, exactly as she had been for the past 40 hours. Her smile was unchanged. "Ambassador," Taiho said, "we're here." "I know." Yuna rose gracefully. "What is our status?" "Fleet has destroyed the hegemony forces. Marines are boarding the station as we speak. The council is in panic." Yuna nodded slowly. "And our people? Any injuries?" "Minor bruising. Nothing serious. Good." Yuna stepped out of the cell and looked down the corridor toward the distant council chamber. "Then let us finish what they started." As they moved through the detention block, they encountered more guards. Each encounter was brief. The aliens had weapons and armor and years of training. The humans had something else entirely. They had spent centuries learning how to kill. Finally, they reached the main corridor leading to the council chamber. Here, human marines were already in position. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. When they saw Ambassador Park, they snapped to attention. The lead marine said, "The station is secure. The council awaits." Yuna looked at the closed doors ahead. Behind them were the beings who had ordered her arrest, her execution, the destruction of her species. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought kindness was weakness and patience was fear. Now they would learn the truth. "Open the doors," Yuna said. Her smile had not changed. But now, even the Marines felt a chill when they looked at her. The doors opened. And Ambassador Yuna Park walked into the council chamber to accept their surrender. The council chamber had become a place of fear. 200 species cowered in their seats as human Marines took positions along the walls. The soldiers moved with silent efficiency, their weapons ready but not raised. They did not shout or threaten. They simply watched. And somehow, that was worse. High Arbiter Veldis remained at his podium, gripping it with all four hands, as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. His scales had gone from gray to almost white. His eyes darted between the Marines, searching for any weakness. Any chance of escape? He found none. The great doors at the entrance of the chamber opened. Ambassador Yuna Park walked in, flanked by her team. She wore the same diplomatic robes she had worn during her capture, now wrinkled and stained from days in a cell. Her hair had come loose from its careful arrangement, but she was smiling. She was always smiling. Behind her walked Taiho, Hannah, Doyan, and Nari. They looked tired, but their eyes were sharp and their movements controlled. Every counselor who watched them remembered the security footage from the detention block. 4 diplomats had disabled trained guards and a warden in seconds, using nothing but their bare hands. These were not the helpless primitives they had believed in. Yuna walked directly to the center of the chamber, to the speaking platform that was reserved for the High Arbiter and the most senior counselors. She stepped onto it without hesitation and turned to face the assembled representatives. "Good afternoon," she said pleasantly. "I apologize for the interruption." No one responded. No one moved. Yuna continued, as if she were addressing a routine diplomatic session. "I believe we have some matters to discuss. First, the question of human territories. Second, the unauthorized arrest of my delegation. Third, the order for our execution." Veldis found his voice. "This is an act of war. You have invaded council territory. Have we?" Yuna tilted her head slightly. "As I recall, it was your forces that attacked first. You arrested diplomatic personnel without cause. You ordered our deaths without trial. We have simply responded to protect our people. You should be grateful we came for us instead of for you." Counselor Themis rose from his seat. Unlike the others, he showed no fear. His compound eyes studied Yuna with what might have been respect. "Ambassador Park," he said, "I warned them. I told them not to underestimate humanity. They did not listen." "I know, Counselor. Our intelligence services intercepted your warnings. It is appreciated." Themis nodded slowly. "What do you intend to do now?" Yuna turned back to the chamber. "That depends on the council. Humanity did not come here seeking war. We came seeking partnership, cooperation, and mutual respect. Instead, we found contempt, prejudice, and violence. She let those words hang in the air. But we are willing to forgive. Once. Veldis slammed his fist on the podium. Forgive? You invade our station, destroy our fleet, and speak of forgiveness? Yuna's smile did not change, but her voice dropped slightly. High Arbiter, you have 200 ships floating in pieces outside this station. 600 vessels, crewed by tens of thousands of your finest warriors, defeated in 11 minutes. My fleet has not yet fired a single weapon at this citadel. She paused. If we wanted destruction, this station would already be debris. The fact that you are alive to speak is the forgiveness I am offering. The chamber was silent. Hannah stepped forward with a data tablet. These are humanity's terms. Non-negotiable. Yuna read them aloud. First, High Arbiter Veldis and Commander Draxus will stand trial for crimes against the Terran Republic. The charges include unlawful detention, assault on diplomatic personnel, and attempted murder. This is outrageous. Veldis shouted. Why UNA continued without acknowledging him. Second, all legislation concerning human territories is void. Our worlds remain our worlds. Any attempt to claim them in the future will be considered an act of war. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various counselors. Third, the Council will issue a formal apology to Earth and pay reparations for the destruction of the hegemony fleet. A counselor from a species Yuna did not recognize spoke up. We should pay you for ships you destroyed. You sent those ships to intimidate us. They died because of Veldis's arrogance. The cost falls on those who gave the orders, not those who defended themselves. Yuna handed the tablet back to Hannah. Those are our terms. Accept them, and humanity will continue to seek peaceful relations with the Council. Refuse them, and we will leave. But know that if we leave as enemies, we will return as conquerors. Veldis laughed, but the sound was hollow and desperate. You cannot threaten the entire galaxy. We will unite against you. Every species will what? Yuna interrupted, her voice still calm. Fight us. You saw what we did to the Void Swarm, a species that terrorized this galaxy for centuries, destroyed in 18 months. Your fleet lasted 11 minutes. She stepped closer to Veldis. We do not want to fight, High Arbiter. We never did. But if you force us to, we will not stop until the threat is eliminated. That is not a threat. It is a promise. Sfema spoke again. Ambassador, may I ask a question? Of course, Counselor. If humanity is so powerful, why did you come to us as diplomats? Why not simply take what you wanted? Yuna was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Because power without wisdom is just destruction. Humanity has learned this lesson many times. We have fought wars among ourselves that killed millions, destroyed cities, poisoned lands for generations. We know what violence brings. She looked around the chamber. We came here hoping to find something better. Partners who could help us become more than we were. Instead, we found the same fear and hatred that has plagued our own history. She turned back to Themis. We would rather be friends, Counselor. We would rather share knowledge and culture and hope, but we will not accept being treated as lesser beings. We will not allow our people to be threatened, and we will not beg for respect that we have earned. The chamber remained silent. Finally, Themis rose and walked to the central platform, standing beside Yuna. I support humanity's terms, he declared. Veldis acted without full council authority. His actions do not represent all of us. Other counselors began to rise, one by one. Some spoke their support. Others simply nodded. Within minutes, a clear majority had formed. Veldis watched his power crumble with disbelief. You cannot do this. I am the High Arbiter. You were the High Arbiter, Themis corrected. Your position requires the confidence of the Council. I believe you no longer have it. Marines moved forward and took Veldis into custody. He struggled briefly, but even his strength was nothing against the humans who held him. As he was led away, he passed close to Yuna.
This is not over, he hissed.
My species will never accept this humiliation. Yuna looked at him with something almost like pity. Then your species will suffer the same fate as the Void Swarm. Not because we want it, but because you will give us no choice. But I hope it does not come to that, truly. Aldous was taken away. The chamber began to buzz with conversation as counselors discussed what had just happened. The galaxy had changed in a single day. Tai-Ho moved to Yuna's side. It's done. The beginning is done, Yuna corrected. The real work starts now. We have to prove that we meant what we said about wanting peace. Do we mean it? Yuna watched the counselors talking, arguing, some even approaching the humans with tentative offers of friendship. These were the same beings who had called humanity primitive, who had supported their imprisonment, who had been willing to let them die. Yes, she said finally, we mean it. That's what makes us different from them. Her smile softened, becoming genuinely warm for the first time since the crisis began. We choose peace. Tai-Ho, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to make that choice. Never forget the difference. Tai-Ho nodded slowly. After all these years, he was still learning what it meant to be human. Maybe they all were. 3 days passed since the human fleet had arrived at the Citadel. In that time, the galaxy had changed more than it had in 1,000 years. The Council had formally accepted humanity's terms. Veldis and Draxus awaited trial in the same detention block where they had held the human delegation. Several elder races had sent private messages to Earth, requesting diplomatic talks. Others had simply gone silent, watching and waiting to see what would happen next. The human fleet remained in position around the Citadel, a constant reminder of what humanity was capable of. But the Marines had begun withdrawing from the station, returning control to Council security. It was a gesture of good faith, a signal that humanity did not intend to occupy what they had conquered. In a quiet room, overlooking the observation deck, Yuna Park stood by a window, watching the stars. The Citadel rotated slowly, and the great ships of the human fleet drifted past like silent guardians. Behind her, her team was packing the few belongings they had brought. The transport is ready, Tai-Ho said. We can leave within the hour. Yuna nodded, but did not turn from the window. Have we heard from Earth? The President sends her congratulations. The Senate has approved our actions. We're being called heroes. Heroes. Yuna said the word like she was tasting something bitter. We nearly started a war that could have killed billions. If Veldis had been less arrogant, if the fleet had been better prepared, things could have gone very differently. But they didn't. No, they didn't. Yuna finally turned from the window. Her smile was still there, but her eyes were tired. Do you know what I keep thinking about, Tai-Ho? That Warden Collis? He asked me why I smiled, and I told him it was because we had already decided what came next, and I told him the truth. But I wonder if he understood what I meant. She walked to a chair and sat down slowly, as if her body suddenly felt very heavy. Humans smile because we have learned to hide what we feel. Joy, sadness, fear, anger. We put on a mask and face the world. It is our defense and our weapon. But sometimes I wonder if we have forgotten how to take the mask off. Tai-Ho sat across from her. He had served with Yuna for 15 years, through operations that were still classified at the highest levels. He had seen her smile through things that would break most people. He had never seen her like this. Ambassador, he said carefully. Yuna, are you all right? I am tired, she admitted. Tired of smiling when I want to scream? Tired of being gentle when I want to fight? Tired of this endless balance between what we are and what we want to be? The door opened, and Counselor Themis entered. His compound eyes took in the room, noting the packed bags and the weary humans. He approached Yuna with a formal bow. Ambassador Park, I hope to speak with you before you departed. Yuna rose to her feet, her smile returning as if it had never left. Counselor Themis, of course. How can I help you? Themis studied her for a long moment. I have a question that has troubled me since this began. May I ask it? Please. You were a soldier once. A famous one, if my intelligence is correct. You killed many beings, conducted operations that changed the course of wars. Then you became a diplomat. You spent years building relationships, negotiating treaties, promoting peace. He paused. Which is the real you? The warrior or the peacemaker? Yuna considered the question carefully. That is not an easy question to answer, counselor. I did not expect it to be. But I would like to understand. Yuna walked back to the window. The stars burned in the darkness, countless points of light representing worlds and species and stories she would never know. When I was young, she said, I believed that strength was the ability to destroy. I was very good at destruction. I could end lives with my hands, plan operations that eliminated entire organizations, make decisions that sent thousands to their deaths. I thought this made me powerful. She touched the cold glass of the window. Then I grew older. I saw what destruction left behind. Empty homes. Orphaned children. Lands poisoned for generations. I realized that anyone can destroy. It takes no special skill to end something. The true challenge is to build. To create something lasting. To make peace where there was war. She turned back to Themis. You ask which is the real me? Both the warrior and the peacemaker are the same person. The difference is what I choose to be in each moment. I can kill. I choose not to. I can destroy. I choose to build instead. That choice is what makes me human. Themis nodded slowly. And if the choice is taken from you, if you must fight, then I fight. Yuna's smile remained, but something cold flickered in her eyes. And I do not stop until the threat is ended. Not because I enjoy it, but because there are things worth protecting. People worth defending. A future worth building. That, Themis said, is what frightens the elder races most about humanity. Not your weapons or your ships. Your conviction. You believe so strongly in your future that you will do anything to protect it. Is that wrong? I do not know. But I think I understand now why Veldis failed. Themis bowed again. I hope humanity and my people can become friends, Ambassador. I believe we have much to learn from each other. I hope so too, Counselor. Themis departed. Yuna watched him go, then returned to her packing. An hour later, the human delegation boarded their transport. As the ship pulled away from the citadel, Yuna looked back through the viewport. The great station grew smaller against the backdrop of stars. Surrounded by the silent shapes of human warships, Hannah sat beside her. What happens now? Now we go home. We report to the Senate. We prepare for whatever comes next. Do you think there will be peace? Yuna thought about the question. She thought about Veldis and his hatred, about the elder races and their fear, about the countless species that had watched humanity with contempt and were now watching with something else entirely. There will be challenges, she said. Some will accept us. Others will never stop trying to destroy us. That is the nature of the galaxy. But yes, I think there can be peace. Not perfect peace, but something better than what we had before. And if they come for us again? Yuna turned from the window and looked at her team. Taiho, who had protected her through 100 battles. Hannah, who had argued humanity's case in chambers that despised her. Doyan, who had healed wounds both physical and emotional. Nari, who had watched and listened and gathered the information that had saved them all. Then we will be ready, Yuna said. We are always ready. That is the burden we carry. The transport entered hyperspace, and the stars stretched into lines of light. Behind them, the galaxy continued to turn. But something had changed. Word spread from world to world, species to species, a new understanding that would shape history for generations.